The following is a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
From the birthplace of modern winemaking, Sonoma, California, welcome to The Winemakers. Local experts Sam Couturi, Bart Hansen, and Brian Casey, along with host John Myers, invite you to listen in as they discuss all facets of winemaking. So sit back, pour yourself a glass, and let's hear what the guys have to say this week.
Bart Nunn.
But Bart X was even better because Racer X was my favorite guy in Speed Racing.
Excellent. God. This should have been recorded.
Seriously.
It has been.
Oh, man.
All right, Sam, can I get a pour?
Wow.
A nice rosé pour this morning. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Winemakers.
Oh,
What's going
Trixie.
on? Hey. Sam Couturi, Bart Hansen, Brian Casey.
Go Speed Racer.
I'm John Myers.
Go Speed
talking
Racer.
about Speed Racer
Go
this
Speed
morning.
Racer.
Bart X Nunn Hansen.
And it's a release party today.
At our own personal release party.
Party. I love parties.
Expected cheering there.
Four guys, 8 bottles.
Right. This might be like episode 3. Anybody who's listened to episode 3 before, this could be a repeat of that.
Oh, no.
Which one was
Let's not do that.
overserved?
Yeah, I think that was Jeff Cohen the second time in one day.
Well, Jeff Cohen magic on that
we
one.
did
Hey,
have-
Jeff, we love you.
We did have our adventures back then, didn't we?
We're
But
so much more professional now.
But I was so
Hey,
much
we've had the U.S. Poet
older
Laureate.
than-
No, we're just so much more.
I'm younger than that now.
You know, my mom called and
Number one listener.
and
Mrs.
and
Hansen.
said that she truly loved the one with
Ada Limon.
Ada Limon.
and I've had a couple other people mention it.
Me too.
And then, you know, another one that keeps getting shout outs is Glenn Proctor. And
Yeah.
not so much, I think it was all the technical
Yeah,
information.
more
about
industry side, but
industry side, yeah.
yeah, that was more in the wheelhouse.
Yeah.
We definitely navigated uncharted waters with Ada Limon. And we made it out to the other side, John. Ship was mostly intact.
The quote I remember best from you is, "We've bumped up against the technology curve a few times," quote unquote, in developing this podcast.
Being whacked over the head with the technology curve.
Well, hey, everybody, we've got a release party this morning. So, Sam and Brian, take it away, man. Oh, I love the fragile sticker on one of these bottles. So we've got.
All right, I'll post it on Instagram, but
Please.
it's not one that we technically sell. That is,
I don't think that's TTB
Duh.
approved. There is no cola on the. It's a great label, though. It would be Fragile. So yeah, this is we're tasting through the fall 2023. Phil sent me wine shipment, our club release for the fall. So this, if I figure out my life in the next 24 hours, this show will release the same time that the email hits your inbox, and so we'll talk about all the wines.
that would be the biggest coup in the history.
Right,
of
if we actually make that happen.
I mean, I
It's
wonder
probably-
what the over under is on that. That's
Yeah, let's take some bets. I'm gonna Pete Rose this one and bet against myself. Pete Rose.
Round two.
Round 2.
Yeah.
Uh,
Pete should be in the Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah, and so should Barry Bonds.
Gambling Hall of Fame.
Right.
The Gambling Hall of Fame, the Steroids Hall of Fame. Actually, both of those really just are the Baseball Hall of Fame. Let's call spade a spade.
So the idea is that people who are, well, if they're Phil Sent Me members, or if they're not but want to be, here's basically a review of the wines. But those
As
people
Brian
that
puts on his marketing hat.
Thank you,
those
Brian.
people that are
Reeling it in.
PSM members will get an actual Sam Couturi breakdown of the wines, kind of inspirational.
Yeah, anybody who's on our list. So
Okay.
members get it. Also, people who are on the list who somehow haven't decided to be members yet. You know, the list is a few thousand. The members are just under 1,000. So, we're getting there. Jasmine's
You've hit 1,000.
No, we're as of the meeting this morning 921.
Well, 75 more. Then you're going to have to take Jasmine to France.
Jasmine to France. I might just send her on her own and stay home.
That might
We'll
be
see.
the best thing for all of us.
Easy,
Sorry, Jasmine.
easy, guys.
she'll have a great time. Just go send her to work with Isabel for a couple weeks.
Well, so all of your hard work and Phil's hard work and everybody put together created what's on the table here.
Yeah.
And it's a massive lineup.
One of the cool things about bringing Brian on is sort of like, it was always kind of the dream, and certainly the concept with hiring Brian is to like have a somm in our cellar every day, looking at what we have, tasting through what we have, and
My dream too.
and basically
Somm in the cellar,
and also add another voice to the chorus as we put together these releases.
Is he the voice of reason?
No, but he's the organized one.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
he's the voice of.
I think Sam's realizing that isn't always the case, but
Well, we best laid plans. The good road to hell is paved with good intentions. But so like always, there's some new releases, some library wine. Dug out a couple of things that have sort of been lost in the cellar for the add-ons, which is cool.
but literally not. Like I think sometimes people say that, but this is actually like for real though.
Like literally dug out.
Literally, like we're just sitting in a warehouse and needed to actually get pulled out. And
Where do you find all these? I mean, how do they get hidden?
It's more.
John, that's not
That's
necessary to
proprietary.
talk. Yeah.
That's proprietary.
That's like exposing things that are proprietary. That's exactly right.
I believe in radical transparency. The two found wines, one relates directly to the new release, which is, and we're totally out of order, but we have the first time we've put Rossi Syrah out, Rossi Ranch Syrah, 100% Syrah. We have 2019 in the regular release. In 2015, we had a little extra and made 40-50 cases of it, Fragile.
And that's the fragile.
That's never
label?
been released. That's the fragile label. And then the other sort of found wine was one I don't even know if I knew we made. It was right at the beginning of our relationship with the Miller Vineyard in Soda Canyon, and that was something we shared with Eric Bradley, and it was our first time taking any of that fruit.
That was the year you and I we drove up there.
Was it? Well, I think it was maybe. So I should have known it was made. You're saying 2015? No, I don't think so. I think it was later.
Oh, no,
than that.
you're right. You know what? We went after post-fire. You're right.
Yeah.
You were right.
And so this is something that like they made a pallet of it. It was in a Repris warehouse forever. We didn't have it, in our inventory. Never got a label. I think I printed labels and then somebody took them and put them on bags and boxes. So they had to reprint the labels. So finally, 2015 Miller Grenache, and the 2016 Miller Grenache was, hugely popular wine with our crew.
And such a great story of the owner of the vineyard too.
Yeah. So we'll get to that too. But should we start with the rosé?
Yeah.
So rosé 2022 Rosé Agale. That's what's in all of our glasses right now. Well, it was in Bart's glass. This is all steel plow vineyard fruit. 25% Mourvedre, the rest 75% Grenache. The cool thing about the steel plow vineyard is, because it's something that we control, we lease it. For the rosé, what we do, and we have Miguel and his crew who, Miguel Santoyo has been with Enterprise since I was a baby, out in that vineyard all the time. And essentially this is a glean of the steel plow vineyard. So we'll go through every block of Grenache and all the fruit that's, numerically at the numbers that we want, but doesn't get great color. It's kind of a problem with that site, A, and B, the Tablas Creek clones of Grenache are lighter in color. So we'll go through and we'll take out the stuff that doesn't fully colorize, and that'll be the Grenache for the rosé. And then this is, radical transparency. There's a section of the Mourvedre which grows upon a septic leach field. And actually, I think it might be from Steve and Heather Law's house.
It's I have experience with vines off of
a leach field,
and
also. They're
also.
just crazy vigorous. and
the size of them.
huge crop, huge berries.
Yeah.
So we'll go through and we don't want it for red wine, but we'll go through
it's
and
organic.
Is that where the Miller Vineyard is?
No, this is
Next
Steel.
to
This is Steel
okay,
Plow.
Steel,
Yeah,
Steel Plow. So exactly where is
Steel
that?
Plow is at Highway 12 and Adobe Canyon Road.
Near Steve Loss.
Near the
Okay.
McLaren tasting room. Literally, Steel Plow Vineyard surrounds Landmark Winery. We call it Steel Plow because was originally called Steel Plow, planted by the great granddaughter of John Damaris Deere Ford. Planted originally in the 80s, replanted to Rhones in the early 2000s.
Nothing grows like a deer.
Nothing grows like a deer. It is
Although
it's actually the only place where we run John Deere tractors in the vineyard. And it's on site. Now Landmark is, owned by a corporation. They don't make any Rhones, so we lease the vineyard. They have landscaping essentially, and we get all the grapes. We send some, I know Abbott's Passage has taken grapes from there in the past. Repris or Pangloss makes a bunch from there. All kinds of different folks. It's kind of like if you want to buy Grenache from Enterprise, you start at Steel Plow, and if Phil likes what you do, then maybe you got to crack it at Rossi Ranch.
How long is it?
Sorry, John, and Phil, thank you for not making me.
You skipped that.
I skipped the Steel Plow, and that's too bad because it would have been fun to work at it. But I'm happy where I'm at.
Maybe you will next year.
Yeah.
How long is it?
Hey.
He might be on the reverse track.
Right. That's
Sam,
right.
how long is a typical vineyard lease run for?
I mean, there's different models for that. I know like Dos Limones, my dad signed a 25-year lease in the 90s, thinking that, that'd be the rest of whatever till the end. And we've renewed that lease. I don't know what exactly the terms are on it, but with Steel Plow, it's kind of a different situation because it's owned by this big corporation. It's always a little bit touch and go that, one day their bean counters are going to say, let's rip that out and plant Pinot Noir or something.
Or just the brand gets sold or
exactly
whatever.
So it's tenuous, but they keep renewing and actually putting money into the infrastructure of the vineyard. And
that's good.
So it's a fairly amicable relationship.
The wine's delicious. It's like the aromatics are off the chart.
And
really
minerality
on
the nose. It's like that. And I say pool water sometimes, and it's just a childhood memory of being out at a hot cement pool when you get out of the pool and you lay down on the hot cement and like that steam comes up in your nose of rock.
Yeah, there's a name for that actually, I think.
I mean, it's like a petrichor,
Sort of
but
a
hot petrichor.
Hot petrichor.
Yeah, I don't know, hotrichor. Call it ourselves.
Yeah.
Concrecapor.
Okay, guys.
But yeah, I love that when you
First
get that
class.
in.
First class. And this is, this is the rosé program continuing to evolve under Isabelle Gassier's guidance. So
I haven't heard about Isabel for a while.
she's doing what we're not doing, picking grapes.
So they're ready and in full swing in France?
I would imagine. And, the Gassier family agricultural empire there in Côte d'Argentine. It's the grapes and, all ranges of quality and volume of grape production from, supermarkets to fine wine, but also all kinds, the other side, like her uncles and cousins, I guess, are all in other sorts of fruit. A lot of like stone fruit, peaches,
right?
So they could have share a facility, I believe. So it's full swing go time over there all the time, I think.
And speaking of which, I get peach on this wine.
Totally, very stone fruit.
Totally, and like yellow cherries and watermelon rind. Like not watermelon, but like when you get a little bit too close to the rind and you get that little astringency, acidity.
And that stringency it's in the finish a little bit.
Yeah.
But it adds to the complexity of the wine really nicely.
I think this is one of the best rosés that Isabel's ever made.
I mean, and her goal, and I think she nailed it, was sort of to have something that is both, you know, as serious and food friendly as the wines that we want to make, but also have some quaffability and you know, poolside sipper kind of vibe. So you know, it's definitely checks those boxes.
Yeah.
So can we talk about a little bit of a current thing?
Sure.
Gallo buys Rombauer.
Yeah.
Had to be close to $1 billion,
I mean,
if not more.
it's funny. They called me and said something about wanting to blow up Chenin Blanc, and I said no. And they said
Who's called you?
Gallo did. Like, you know, we want to blow up Chenin Blanc. Would you be interested? And maybe could we purchase
Oh
you?
my God.
And then they went after Rombauer.
Is this the
so
April Fool's episode? What's going on here?
Might have been a dream.
Well,
It might have been a dream.
200 acres are in North Sonoma here.
In Sonoma Valley, they
Yeah.
have vineyard in Sonoma Valley. I mean, you know, look,
That's a lot of land.
The fact that
yeah.
maybe I didn't even realize that Rombauer was still family owned before that.
Oh,
I mean, it just seems like such a big brand, such like a legacy brand. You know, every desperate housewife in America is drinking Rombauer Chardonnay, right? I mean, it's just like ubiquitous.
But
Well,
also,
it's
and also,
a
I think
trusted
it's,
name.
yeah, and
Yeah.
also I think what's interesting, you know, friend of the pod, Adam Lee, as he told us when he was here that he started a project with them. He was helping them make Pinot,
Right.
which they had never made, and they went pretty big in on it. And so, I find that fascinating also. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
it'll be interesting, you know, and of course, like all these Gallo purchases of premium brands, the thing they did with Denner and Paso, at least, you know, initially, the word is, the PR is, you know, that everybody stays, facilities stay the same, winemaking teams stay the same,
Right.
and you know what you get is the buying power of the largest winery on the planet, and who literally makes their own corks, glass, labels, you know, everything.
Gallo seems different than, say, Constellation. Constellation was like a holding company. Gallo actually makes wine,
And they're family owned,
and they're-
actually.
Yeah, I mean, it is a
Yeah,
family, right?
Yeah, but they're trying to improve themselves.
Well, and they come from a family of farming. Like
Right.
they come from farming.
Yeah. It's still based in the dirt
Yeah.
as opposed to the boardroom.
I mean, and I think that for me, like, what it is just an indication of what they see and what we've been talking about, and Rob McMillan talks about, and all the sort of like industry metrics that premium wine brands and premium wine, and I know it's ridiculous for us and probably most of our listeners when they think about like premium wine means over $15 a bottle, and I'm pretty sure I'm about to go to a costing meeting on Tuesday with the bookkeepers that tell me that like it costs us $15 a bottle to make our wine, basically. So you know, it's an interesting market trend, and it'll be really interesting to see. You know, Gallo owns all those Constellation, what are now bottom brands, the
Right.
Ravenswoods and things like that, and to see sort of as those are going to fall away, what happens with, you know, the premium brands that they've purchased, and if they can keep them premium, because that's always the thing that you worry,
question.
right? The question when, you know, a big guy buys small premium brand and then blows it up, and you know what happened with the
Tribute.
Prisoner,
Oh.
right, yeah, with
Ravenswood.
Tribute, exactly, classic example. You
Well,
know,
that's
goes
just
from-
a bait and switch is all that is.
yeah. Well, that's what it is. So we'll see. I'll tell you what they don't have: 5% Clairette Blanche in there.
Oh, shit.
All right, let's get back to 2021 Rossi Homage
I
Blanc.
think we just did, Bart.
This
Yeah.
is so different than the rosé. Wow. I mean, the bouquet here is just outstanding.
Yeah.
It's
And
all
it's
those.
so different.
You know, this is our flagship white wine, right? I mean, we know we make the Marsanne, we make the Viognier, occasionally some Sauvignon Blanc or Chardonnay falls in our laps, but where we put our most sort of efforts and energies and thinking caps on is how to make Homage Blanc a little bit better every year. And in after 19, we cut over Marsanne that we had at the Rossi Ranch and you know, tea-budded, grafted on top Clairette Blanche. And I'm pretty sure this is why Brian works here.
I mean, if you've listened to the show before, you know one of my favorite wines in the world is the Domaine Sans Parfum, the 100% Clairette Blanche. I mean, but everyone was curious about when Toblis Creek brought it over here and it went to UC Davis, what people would actually do with it here. It's obviously, it's just like everything else. It's not going to taste like it did in France. We're different climate, different soil types and everything here. But so I'm still curious to try it on its own. But to make it into a blend here, I only know of us and Toblis Creek, and I think there's a handful of other people that are playing around with it at this point. But to switch the blend, because if you think about the blend, how it was before was Roussanne, Marsanne, Grenache, Blanc,
Right.
and they all carry some weight
They do.
to the party, and
The Grenache Blanc, kind of the least amount of those.
yeah,
Agree
but
with that?
Who had the
but
idea
still,
of the Clairette Blanche?
I mean, it had to be Phil, right? And Phil must have, because it's one of those grapes that you see in Chateauneuf, and
Yeah.
so
What
I mean,
characteristics does it add?
and that's the thing. It depends on where you're growing it, and who's growing it. So
It'll
the
probably
one
take some time to figure that out. Also, I mean, these are very
Yeah.
young vines. This was probably the first harvest off it, right?
yeah.
And it will change over the first few years before it kind of settles into a style. And on the same side, they've got to figure out how they're going to treat it. Is it stainless steel?
Yeah.
Is it barrel? Is it
Right.
is
And
it
what
pick
I
early,
loved
pick late?
about Isabel's the Domaine Sans Parfum was that it was lean but also had weight to it. Like it was balanced, and I love that in white wines when there's acidity but there's a little bit of lushness to it as well.
Yeah.
So it was one of the first times that I had used the word ethereal when I was describing a wine, and they only had it in magnums, and so I had to buy magnums and then drink them.
Oh, I'm so
at 1
sorry.
o'clock in the morning
So
in my
sorry, Brian.
garage.
This
So
is the Saint Parfait.
yeah, it took 2 days. But
That's it.
yeah.
I mean, actually, I'm surprised it
Overnight
lasted
wine.
that long.
Yeah, me too.
But
Professional
we'll see what
different,
people
so.
do with it. I think I tried the Clairette Blanche that Toblis Creek put out 3 years ago or something.
You
and,
joined. I remember you joined the club. So
well,
that
you only
could-
get access to it if you join the club. So what I do a lot of times when they come out with Bourblanc or Vacheras or Tourette Noir or those new grapes is that I join the club, I buy a bunch of wine, and then I quit the club because I can't belong to a club.
Sorry, Jason, if you're listening.
I love Jason. I love all those guys, but I just need to drink the wine. I'll buy the wine. I just need to drink the wine. I just don't want the emails.
Right.
Jason's got a lot going on. He's starting harvest.
I imagine they're starting harvest down there, and he's. They just put out another release of 3-liter box wine. We all follow in Toblis's footsteps,
Of course.
and stand on the shoulders of the Haas family. So,
But man, I love the baked apple and almost like lemon oil, a little bit of honey.
and I think
on this.
that's the way that Roussanne and Clairette play, because that the baked apple was always there, but that sort of citrus oil.
Mhm.
And again, it's only 5%. And this percentage will probably increase as we go through. The vines mature and everything kind of comes in balance. But
Because this probably wasn't it's not like you had another 10 or 15% Clairette Blanche to blend in.
No,
It was
this
probably put all of it in.
and this was
and
all
then work on
co-fermented,
good ones.
right?
It was co-fermented also, yeah. So
The magic of co-fermentation. Yeah.
I wonder what it would taste like without the Clairette.
You can taste the 2020 is just Roussanne and Grenache Blanc, because we had cut over the Marsanne in 19. 2020 is fantastic, totally different vintage than 21. To me, the 20 is more acid driven than this is. I don't know if that's it's just sort of a little sharper acidity. And again, that could be the vintage, and could be just the way the Grenache Blanc and the Roussanne played in that vintage.
God, the finish on this, like I drank it a minute ago and I'm still tasting it. Yeah, definitely hands down my favorite white wine. Work here, don't work here. White wine and besides Bart's 2016 Chenin Blanc, of course.
Just Brian and Oprah's.
Does he still make Chenin?
yes. As a matter of fact, John, since you asked,
Ooh,
Tune in next week.
tune in next week for the Dane Sellers new release,
yeah.
of which a new Chenin Blanc will be released.
And Bart's spreading his wings in terms of varietals and different stuff.
So next week's, thank you, Brian. Next week's or the new releases, there will actually be 3 wines that are going to be wine club only wines.
Yes.
Wow.
And if the wine club doesn't buy them all, then they'll be released to the general, public. But so I'm super excited about that. I've actually gotten to that point. So yeah, the Malbec and the Rossi blend only in the amphora. So we'll taste those all together.
Nice.
So.
And has Gloomboy purchased some of your Malbec yet?
Technically, the Malbec hasn't been released yet.
Okay.
But I think.
But Chris already has a case.
I think
Sure.
I think the last time I saw him, I might have slid him a bottle or two.
Yeah. Good.
So.
I know he'll be super excited about that.
Yeah, we've had many discussions about it. How's that?
Yeah. Good.
All right, so the next wine must have been either well hidden in the cellar, or maybe it's reappearing.
It's reappearing, and maybe this is it's definitely the second time it's been in the shipment. So if you've been a member for a long time, you might have one of these in your cellar, but you probably drank it already. 2016 Steel Plow Homage, and in 15 and 16. We made the Steel Plow Homage. We made Steel Plow Grenache at Repris with Eric Bradley, and we made this wine with Jeff Baker at Stone Edge Farm. And what happened in 16 is Jeff was trying to launch a private label, or his own personal label, the Vulture wines, which if you have any in your cellar, they're great. He made some of my favorite Pinot Noir ever. And so we split the Steel Plow. He was going to take half of it and put it into the Vulture label, and we were going to take half of it. And by the time we were bottling in 2018, he decided that he wasn't going to pursue starting that other brand. And so overnight, the amount of 2016 Steel Plow Homage that we were going to make basically doubled. So, there's also one of the reasons there was a bunch of this that was shiners too, I think. So we finally got it all labeled, and putting it back out. I don't know if did I put the percentage on the back of this label?
Yeah.
John?
75 Grenache, 10 Mourvedre, and 9 Syrah.
And 9 Syrah. All right. And this was what I remember about this. This was both the 15s and the 16s was sort of the learning curve on how powerful Syrah can be in a Rhone blend, and where doing a bench trial and 9% is 8% isn't enough and 12% is too much kind of thing, and you really dial in the Syrah. What we'll do a lot now is co-ferment Grenache and Mourvedre, and if there's a little Syrah to put in there, maybe put it in. But then with the more current wines that we're making at Magnolia with Jack and Isabel, we'll do a Grenache Mourvedre co-ferment, mostly Grenache, a little Mourvedre, and then maybe a Grenache or a Mourvedre Syrah co-ferment with just the two of them, and kind of see how that goes together and give yourself some tools in the final blend.
I'm looking at the back label, and you've got the Stanley Mouse drawing, mm-hmm. and artist Stanley Mouse, but I didn't know he did one of Phil.
Yeah,
and it's Phil on a tractor, looking very Stanley Mouse. But I found myself tapping on it, trying to enlarge it. So it doesn't work on the bottle.
It is a little picture. We should do more with that. That was
I've never seen it before.
That was
is it on anything else?
Phil's
just about every.
It's on the back of the bottle.
Yeah.
But it was the poster and T-shirt we did for Phil's 50th birthday party, which would have been
a while back,
2002, and it's there's a big laminated print of it in the Enterprise Vineyards office, and we basically took that and kind of cleaned it up and made it the little sort of thumbnail that we use. And it's the Stanley Mouse sort of hot rod art. Yeah. Instead of monster hot rod, it's a it's a tractor. and instead of some big hairy eyeball, it's a big hairy eyeball.
No eyeballs, no wings.
Yeah, exactly.
The aromatically,
how's Stanley doing?
Just amazing.
Stanley coming.
I think
up?
He's doing pretty good.
Good.
He came to our event. He's doing some art. It's kind of slowly all
How
coming
positive is that, man?
He's a Brazilian motherfucker. I mean, let's just, he's on a liver transplant in the 90s, and he's in his 80s. He 2 months after a fairly major stroke drove himself to our party because he wanted to, and made it home. So it's amazing. I mean, obviously with anybody,
Here's to Stanley.
His he's not going to be here forever, but every time that we get to work with him and
he's
hang
a
out
treasure.
with him and see new things that he's put together, it's just every day a little blessing on it. So some new paintings hanging in the tasting room since he's been here too. So if you haven't been in,
I thought the Dylan one he did was without a doubt.
Man, I want somebody to buy that for just a low price of $20,000. You can have an epic Bob Dylan
beautiful.
painting.
Stunning, actually.
So 2016, it's just such a great vintage. I think it's not one necessarily that's going to last forever in the cellar, just because it's been ready to drink for so long. But it's in a pretty good spot right now.
It's in a great
sometime
spot.
in the next it's 2023 right now. 10 years from bottling. So I think that you have, this was bottled in 18. So you got another 3 or 4 years with this one for sure. But
yeah, I mean, the wines from 2016 kind of came out of the press pan.
Mm-hmm.
There are those years where they come out just tasting that good, and I do remember this over the years, and it's always been really nice.
Yeah, I mean the licorice on the nose, and then
Mhm.
a little bit of cocoa, and then
The
really
effect
good.
on the mouth and the tongue is amazing.
Yeah.
It makes my mouth juicy.
when you get this graphite thing
Delicious.
in the
yeah,
mouth too,
super
which is- it so reminds me of I don't know if it's like Gigondas or it's
it's not Chateauneuf de Pop.
no,
It's I think Gigondas, Vacara, something like
Yeah.
that. A little bit more austere, a little more mineral. The graphite's a great call.
totally. Well, I don't know if I would pick this out as a California wine, like in a tasting.
Yeah. I mean, that's, we want it to be California. We're, always walking that line. You want it to be true to who you are, but you also want it
In
to,
place. Yeah.
truly allude to the masters.
It just gives me a flashback of sitting in a big conference center at Hospice Tyrone in Paso Robles and tasting through a lineup of Gigondas or Vacaras. It gives me that.
It reminds me of sitting outside the old papacy building in Avignon,
Ooh.
having a nice Grenache
There you
there.
go.
I mean, that's what I get out of
You
it.
can go with Jasmine when we hit 1,000 club members.
Thanks. Oh,
You have to pay your own way.
we have now
And
booked,
Jasmine.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
we now have booked our trip for next spring.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll be there with you. The thing about it, for me, aromatically, it's Sonoma.
Yeah.
On the palate, it's Gigondas.
Totally.
Yeah. Cool.
Just a little dirty.
Just enough.
All right, 2017 Val Rossi homage.
So this is again, this is the benefits of Brian managing the inventory. I would have never thought to put this back into a shipment. Just because I didn't think we had enough. He counts everything really close. We're, the amount of wine club members that we have and the amount of bottles that we have left of this are essentially
So one bottle each.
one bottle each. I think that, some of the customs and stuff, but there's a little limited amount of it. 17 again, 17 was such a pivotal year for us in so many ways. The fire sort of galvanized everything that we do. I think both with this show, with our brand, for me personally, and showed us a lot about the Rossi Ranch also. After our experiences in 15 and 16, we co-fermented Grenache and Mourvedre and did not harvest the Syrah. And we're going to let the Syrah hang for another week or so. Of course, that timing meant that the Syrah was hanging during the fire when most of the Grenache and Mourvedre were off.
Right.
So this is It's not on the label, but it's probably 65% Grenache, 35% Mourvèdre, no Syrah.
Yeah.
And also showed us that, maybe we don't, the GSM is not something that you should put your mind around. The S is nice and needed in some vintages, and some vintages it's just G and M to make a really expressive version of the Rossi Ranch blend.
Does the Syrah give it what I would call sort of a smooth, silky effect?
Syrah, because it's such a high pH wine, definitely can be more smooth and sort of like kind of round some of the edges off of this. It also just adds shoulder. But that's what I always think about Syrah is like Brawny has these shoulders that not having Syrah in here makes it a little more lean and austere. Not that this is a little wine by any stretch.
But it also Syrah has that that richness and roundness which goes along with the pH that it kind of dumbs down the wine if you have too much of it. Right. And it, as Sam said earlier, it's a very fine line. And I know from my own experience, not having the Syrah to work with, I like where it's at with just 2/3 Grenache, 1/3 Mourvèdre. But I mean, this is right up my alley right here.
I know the acidity is great.
Yeah. I mean, it's and the Syrah would take away from the acidity.
Right. That's what I was thinking as Sam was talking about the pH, and I'm like, I love where this is at.
Yeah. And this is, again, this has been in bottle for 4 years now. Bottled in 19. It's 6 years old. I think it's just starting to. I mean, this is what I've always felt about the Rossi Ranch in general, and Grenache also. That usually by the time we're done selling these wines is when they're finally opening up and coming into their sort of prime years. So be able to show this right now, and again, this is we always joke about Grenache's what Pinot Noir wants to be when it grows up, and I think this is just such a classic example of that. It has this elegance, this sort of lightness, but there's nothing extraneous or flabby about this one.
No.
So when you add Syrah, whose palate is fine enough that they can determine the difference between 6 and 12?
Better be the fucking winemaker.
Okay, well then
it's the thing about it, John, and it's not like. Better be the winemaker. It's what we pay them all the money. No. It's usually so obvious. And, bench trials are fun exercise in general. But, you sit there and you start with, graduated cylinders and all these things that I didn't pay attention to in high school chemistry. Measuring these things out, and, you do a 1%, you do a 2%, you do a 3, a 4, a 5, and a 6, and or whatever the numbers that you're starting with, and it usually jumps out what the right answer is.
And I know from my own experience, what usually helps you understand the right answer is because when you've gone too far, you really know you've gone too far. Like you're tasting up through these wines, and you're seeing this progression, and then all of a sudden it's lost its identity. Right. And that's, any number of trials, whether you're, using acid or, finding trials, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But you guys do, you guys, it's you, I've seen some of these trials. It's you and Phil, and whether it's Isabel and Jack or whoever's making the wine. You guys sit down and it's not taken lightly.
No.
When you guys do the blending,
and it's best done, I think, with a group as opposed to an individual person making that decision, at least in my experience, because the feedback is what it is. Remember, everybody tastes things differently, and so having the feedback is, I think, important.
Yeah. No, it is. I couldn't imagine doing that
by yourself. Yeah.
First of all, I'd fuck up the math. I know that. But also, just to watch somebody else's reaction to either validate your own or to help you question your own reaction. is such an important piece of that. And you know, gender, sexism aside, you know, to have men and women at that table, have younger people, older people at that table, and really sort of like get as many perspectives as you can, you know, without being too confusing.
I think there's a right number sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes you go over that number.
When I remember talking, you know, Dave Lowenberg was in here the other day, and we were talking about this, doing blending trials, and he said he was working for Gallo at one point, and
Dave Lowenberg
was
working for Gallo.
Yeah, back in his
surgeon?
younger
Yes.
days. And there was the group was 17 strong that would do the blends.
Sounds like
And he said one day they decided to meet at a certain time, and there was 16 of them, and it had been 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. They were waiting for this 17th person, and so they decided to go ahead and start. They went ahead and did the blend. They finished it. They all agreed on this specific blend, and then in walks number 17, which is Ernst.
I was going to say number 17 is probably last name.
Decided that he liked the other one, and so then they all went with the other one.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, that's the first times I ever did this was basically Jeff Baker, my dad, and myself, and I knew that no matter what my answer was, the right answer was what Jeff and Phil decided.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a piece of that. You know, experience has such a huge piece of all of this. You know, to have tasted as much wine as Ernest Gallo had tasted in his life by that time, and to taste as much wine as Phil and Jeff have.
Strong personalities sometimes will dominate those meetings.
Sure. I mean, that's the same as, you know, wine judging. You know, one person in the group judging the wines is a strong personality, sways things. I mean, I think the other thing that goes with this, which only time and experience can dictate, is understanding how the wine's going to age. Because the wine with Syrah is going to age differently than the wine without Syrah. And for that matter, you know, when you add acid to a wine, for those that add acid, you know, the wine is what it tastes like today is not what it tastes like in 6 months when it's been released. Right. And so, or 12 months by the time it gets to the marketplace. So
I prefer to add the acid directly to myself.
I know.
Let the wine be alone.
Right. Exactly. And in the back, right? The tip of the.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Well, it changes just as you open the bottle and let it sit. It's a pretty amazing process, isn't it?
Okay. Syrah,
like poetry,
obviously.
John, when you start reading it, just like when you're popping the cork, right?
Are we now
the story
official
becomes
poetry
alive.
Podcast
Right.
of the wine business?
Well, you have a poem ready for the end, right, Sam?
When both Sam and I did back to school nights last night, and so when we were in my daughter's English class, I was just hoping she was going to say, "Oh, and do you know Ada Limon was here recently? Did anyone get a chance to talk to her?" And I was going to be like, "Hell yeah!"
Episode 292, Winemakers Podcast. Bring it up. Required listening by every. No, I don't think we should probably encourage high school students to listen to our show. Never mind.
So, 2019 Rossi Ranch Syrah. I love, like, here it is. This is Syrah in a nutshell. Like, it's only a 2019 that's already laying down some tartrates,
Right, it's been in
solids.
bottle for 2 years.
Yeah.
Not even, it's for a year.
And have you ever done basically 100% Rossi Syrah before?
Well, 2015. But we didn't ever really know what to do with it. We didn't have enough. You know, it just kind of like languished in the cellar, and we never made a label for it.
Well, I mean,
I tried to like.
Is it fair? Is it? Yeah. I mean, it was intended for something else.
Yeah. It was one of those things where, like, you get to the bottling day and like, oh yeah, we know we have 2 barrels of the Syrah left, and we're like, oh, well, I guess you should.
Where when this came in,
it was with intent.
It was intent,
yeah.
and you knew, you know, what you were going to do. There was probably no intention to try to put in Grenache or Mourvedre. It was probably, let's show what we can grow as far as Syrah off the Rossi Ranch.
When I love
show Artie how it's really done.
Yes, that's a debate I want to get into.
Well, from my point of view, this is so dramatically different from what we've just had.
Right. Oh, well, I mean,
so dramatically different.
You know, age of the wine, age of the vines. and everything about this. And what I think is so interesting is how different it is from our Dos Limones Syrah, which, obviously has the Viognier Skins edition, which this does not, which changes things dramatically. But just the vineyard site, this is such a warmer place, much more, intensely volcanic soils where, the Dos Limones is sort of that Spreckles loam, with some volcanic, but also a lot of sedimentary soils in it.
That's a beautiful wine. I am happy, Brian.
This is, when I think of, the John Myers lunch at the Fig with a glass of Syrah and
the McLaren Syrah,
and some thighs and fries.
Great picture, isn't it?
This is
great picture.
This fits that for sure.
I know we talk about Rossi Ranch a lot when we talk about Grenache, but don't really talk about the Syrah grown out there. How much is it compared to what else is grown out there?
I'd have to pull it up. There's a small block of Syrah. Well, there's a couple blocks of Syrah because there's one like across the creek
on the red soil
from the Bart block.
Yeah.
Bart X Hansen Nunn block.
Right.
And then along the road on this, I guess you'd call it the south side of the road as you're coming up.
Thank you.
Is also Syrah,
right,
on trellis there. And I don't remember which block this came from. But it's, it's not, it's probably number, you'd say Grenache, Zin, or the, top two varieties out there. It's probably there with, other than white grapes, it's probably there with Mourvedre about the same amount.
But to go to show like the thought that was put into it when people were planting Syrah in the 2000s, right? Late 90s, Sam.
Right.
They were planting Syrah with small amounts of Grenache and Mourvedre. And to Phil's credit, and with Phil's passion for Grenache, that's changed. Like people are planting more Grenache than they are Syrah now.
They've reversed the percentages, yeah.
And it was almost just like, somewhere along the way, Syrah was going to be the next super great. But really what we're finding out is we always loved wines from the Rhone, but it was the Southern Rhone, not the Northern Rhone.
Well, I love Côte-Rôtie and Hermitage, but I think
more to what we have here.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's one thing to say if we were out in Valley Ford or West Sebastopol.
Yeah, Yorkville Highlands.
Right.
Right.
Then it would be a different story. But here, Grenache belongs in the majority and using Syrah and Mourvedre to complement it.
Well, and if you look at the Southern Rhone, that's
right. Is this a trend nationwide other than Sonoma wide?
As far as
Grenache taking over?
We live on Sonoma Island, John. If it's happening here, it's happening everywhere, right?
And they're not pulling out Cabernet and Napa.
Yeah, exactly.
I understand that.
Grenache.
No.
Paso
but
obviously.
Napa's Napa. I'm talking everywhere
but Paso
else.
Robles is, obviously invested big into these varieties, and Santa Barbara, parts of Santa Barbara have, and parts of Mendocino.
We know Washington.
Yeah.
They're growing Syrah.
I don't know if actually it's taking over the nation, but definitely.
I think that it's also skewed by that. At one point, sort of after Zinfandel, there was a big push around here for Syrah to be the next Cabernet, and a lot of it was planted, and then people realized that it's sometimes it's hard to sell Syrah. We've never had that problem, but I think what happened is a lot of Syrah got pulled out in the last 10 years. There was also some like Syrah vine decline problems and young, which again isn't necessarily something that we've run into, but a lot of people had probably bad clonal material, bad genetics, and a bunch of those vines died off. But the Sandy Weil vineyard up by you was one of those that just kind of quit, at 20 or so. So I think that
one of the blocks at Lassiter did the same thing. It just kind of quit.
It just kind of quits.
Yeah.
How strange.
you get this farming. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but do you see that with other vines, other varietals?
Well, no, because I don't think it's something that commonly happens through the business. It was something that was a bad mix of either clones and root stocks, or just bad clones, or bad jobs, putting them together, right, Sam? I mean, no one really ever figured out what it was, but it was not
like the whole black goo of the 90s. It was
definitely something that happened.
It's something that, and maybe it happened in the nurseries. Also like the genetic evaluation of the grapevines of the different varieties and stuff really skyrocketed around that time, so that's cleaned up a lot of things. But you look at parts of like Carneros and stuff that have been sort of wholesale replanted in the last decade. There was young vine decline across the industry. Syrah hit hard, but also maybe it's Roundup. I don't know. You spray a herbicide on your plant and your plant dies, and you wonder, must be something wrong with the plant.
You think?
Maybe something wrong.
But Sam, Roundup only goes through the leaves, and you're not spraying it on the leaves.
Yeah, that's it.
Wait a minute. Let me take off my Bayer hat.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It is amazing how this wine has changed. Aromatically, when it was first poured, it had a lot of like gaminess and pepper to it, and now it's moved into like it's almost got like candy apple and black cherry, concentrated cherry, and a little bit of orange zest or something in there.
Happy birthday, Arden.
Happy belated birthday, Arden.
Yeah.
Thank you. That bridge from 69 to 70 was giant.
29 again.
On the bridge.
Doesn't appear to be that way to look at you. Seems like you did just fine.
As long as it's not a bridge to nowhere.
Guests arrive.
Hey, everyone.
From the famous
Welcome.
Volkswagen Bus Tours. What's it called now? Still West
Wine
Still
Tours.
West
got
Wine
hats
Tours?
on.
It's a good hat day.
Yeah.
Good hat day. Yeah.
Somebody's been to Large Leather.
Yeah, there you go.
That's perfect. God, I love Jessica.
She's one of the gems of the plaza.
Yeah,
sure.
Absolutely.
Oh, John,
That's delicious.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
I think I know where the rest of this bottle is going after the show.
Hopefully.
So for the sake of continuity, should we jump, even though it's an add-on?
Yeah.
Let's jump to the 15.
Yeah.
I hate to pour this out, but that was my problem early on. I was like, all this good wine.
Is too good to pour
why do you
out?
pour out? Yeah, well, there's a reason for that. And listen to our first few episodes with what I'm saying.
So
Please don't.
Or don't.
Yeah.
Or don't. So 2015, tough vintage.
Ooh, yeah. I personally only made one wine in 2015.
What was it?
Really?
Cabernet.
From Desnudos?
Desnudos.
And you probably got half of what you were hoping to get?
Yeah. Which was fine because I was supposed to take the whole block and I got the right amount of fruit for what I needed.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it was a weird year. I, at the time, was a little oversupplied in inventory and just kind of settled in on one thing.
Yeah.
Something else fell apart. But yeah, I mean, it was an interesting year, to say the doubt.
It, it was sort of peak drought.
Mm-hmm.
Super windy.
Mm-hmm.
If you recall, this was one of the time. Wasn't this like the time that they tried to do Sonoma Valley Signature in the spring and it rained on everybody?
Yes, it was. Yep.
So rain and rain and this is the fragile bottle. Rain and hail in May, if I recall. I remember we were working on the tasting room. I remember standing right there at this door, tasting house, and thank you, Bart, and watching the parking lot here fill up with hail on a spring day.
Oh God! Dun. Breaking news. You want it?
Yeah.
Sorry. Gallo just purchased Masakan.
No shit.
Yeah, I got a text from one of our pod listeners.
Boy, how much money do those cats have?
Dan Petrosky just sold to Gallo.
That talk about the ultimate podcast bump.
Wow. There you go.
Break some of that off for us, Dan.
Wait a minute. Come on.
4 hours ago.
Was that on Shitty Wine Memes?
No, this was...
Come on.
Wow. Gallo's just... Maybe we should...
Those cats have some money, don't they?
I mean...
Where did you see that?
Maybe they did actually call me. Maybe that wasn't a crank call.
Whoa, is this different? Woo.
Buzzy Napa Winery sells to America's largest wine company. Here's why. Gallo has purchased Massacon, a rare white wine-only brand born out of Cabernet Sauvignon in Napa Valley. San Francisco Chronicle. I guess that's a pretty good one.
Okay.
All right, Brian.
So, I mean, we got to reverse engineer this a little bit. This didn't happen in the last 24 hours. This is, I know we shouldn't even be talking about it.
Why not?
Because, right? I mean, this would have had to been going on.
Yeah, I mean, usually that doesn't be like
Those things happen.
the phone call comes in and you say, yeah, sure, I'll take your millions of dollars. Gina, Matt, whoever made that call. No, I'm sure that
I wonder if you get it all in one lump sum. But you can
it's like the lottery, right, John? You can take it over 20 payments over 20 years, or you can get 40% right now.
Well, this is such a different wine from everything we've been tasting this morning. It's amazingly different.
And I love this nose. I love that.
Talk to me about
a little
this.
bit of age on it, right?
Yeah, it's definitely got some tertiary flavors.
Totally.
All right,
Primary
so
stuff
there's
just drops
no
away.
label at all on this. Tell me.
Well, there's a label now. This is, I mean, this it's not this bottle. In fact, I think there might be labeling it in the warehouse as we speak. This is 100% Syrah, 2015 Rossi Ranch.
Wow.
We made 45 cases of it or something like that.
It's so much more concentrated.
Well, it's concentrated is also, I mean, this wine is not a high pH wine, and if it is, the level of tannins on it are so high that it balances it out.
I mean, imagine
the tannins are very fine. Sorry, the tannins are very fine grained, and so they're like perfect. But there's definitely tannin there. Like this needs some food.
Even the bouquet is different.
Wow,
dramatically.
This was charcuterie.
You want to see like this is this now. In 5 years, is the 2019 Rossi Syrah going to be in this spot?
Right.
You'd hope it'd be somewhere similar. Maybe it'll take a little longer. I mean, 2015 again. This was the all skin no juice vintage. This was the year of 8-inch hoses that go from the crusher to stemmer system to the fermentation tank, clogging and backing up with juice because there was so much, kind of one of these, I don't know what you call those pumps, those like
must pumps
that, kind of goes in pulses, and there wasn't enough juice in those pulses to push the skins through. So you had it was like clogged arteries where you were sitting there and you find in every, like steel pipe and baseball bat you could find in the winery pounding on these hoses to break up the skin clog.
Yeah. And most likely if you were putting it through the destemmer, you probably had the rollers out so you weren't cracking the berries. So,
right.
The berries were holding the juice. And again, because it was so small, for all those reasons.
Right. Yeah, exactly. They're probably, even if we were trying to crack the berries, a lot of those berries were just going through anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, especially it was Cabernet that I saw that happen with more, but Syrah, it's definitely a lot of tannin.
And the baseball bat is such a technical term too.
You know what? It was actually the thing that I remember using, and I don't know. There's probably a name for this other that's more specific, but there's this like metal bar that's a sort of like claw at the end of it that fits onto the edge of a barrel, and you use it to sort of like lever the barrels.
Called a barrel turner.
A barrel turner. Yes, super specific and technical term, and using that as like the bat to whack at this clogged hose.
At least you weren't trying to shove it into the machine.
You
might have done that
learned
also.
those lessons
at a very young age.
Younger age.
I love how this is almost like you took that 2019 and like took its clothes off and skinned it and got down to the bones of it, and this is like the acidity is great, and it almost starts to pick up some of those like when you eat a graham cracker and you get some like a little bit of molasses and like cinnamon and nutmeggy kind of flavors start coming out. Yeah, that's cool. And
to me, that's the signature of the Rossi Ranch. That like those spice box characteristics.
It's like stripping the 19 down.
All right.
Wow, we are proceeding rapidly.
Are we going to stay in the Rhone blend and go to the Miller Grenache and end with the cab?
The 15 Miller is going to be, my guess is, sort of a backstep. Not not in quality, but just because it's a lighter. I mean, just look at the color.
You do.
I'm still on this Syrah, and it's just
this is
so strong. Flavor. Okay, I'll pour it out.
Sorry, John.
Yeah, no
poor
problem.
John.
I'm just.
We'll get you a box. You can take these home.
We're not going back to 2016, John.
Okay, so look at the color
How about 09?
difference on this from the other wines.
I used to buy a lot of your 09 Syrah.
Did you?
Yeah, it was great.
Probably none of it. That's why there's
Wow.
none left.
I love that.
I used to
Yeah,
take a
I
lot
like that
home.
we actually went from sort of an older Syrah to an older Grenache because, I mean, it's really apparent at the differences in this wine. It's like,
I mean, its color is like the classic Grenache garnet.
yeah.
Alder Yara's, I guess this is that social media that formerly known as Twitter, ROFL. And if you thought the Rombauer purchase was a shocker, you're going to need a new pair of pants when you hear that E.J. Gallo Winery just bought Massacon. Damn. Good for Dan.
Yeah.
You know what? Just means that the next thing he does is going to be even that more outrageous and successful.
Yeah.
I wonder what the tabs are for this. I mean,
Wait a minute.
Rombauer. What does a Rombauer get from Gallo?
So
price-wise?
the comps that I was reading about in the last, again, this is 24-hour old news, was the only, there was no numbers released, but based on what the Chateau Saint Michel brand was valued at a couple of years ago, either in a sale or in, packaged to a private equity or something, was about $750 million. So that was, what they were looking at for this. My guess is it might be north of that.
I was going to say
the Rombauer. I would say it probably is.
I mean, Rombauer
scratching
has
the ceiling of $1 billion.
Much different
than
reputation.
than Saint Michel.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
And all the vineyard land.
A couple hundred acres included, if
I
not
think it's
more.
than that. I think
More
it's
than that, it was
couple
only a
hundred.
couple hundred acres in Sonoma.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do they have in
Napa-
Napa?
I mean, I'd have to look
Same
at the
thing.
article, but it's a lot of money. It's
Yeah.
just
It's crazy money.
and it's
It's retirement money for sure.
For the rest of your like 3 generations or something.
but it also just stratifies the industry again so much,
right.
And going back to our earlier conversation, like what will happen to Massacon now? Like,
They're going to retire.
Well,
I'm
no,
not
is
talking
Dan
about
still
that.
going to
Dan's
make the
gonna-
wine?
brand,
or is,
yeah.
or is
right?
you
But we also know how that goes. Like,
he's going to have to buy more fruit?
yeah. But then again, it's also like the thing with
They have the fruit.
is they have the fruit, and
Yeah,
and
right.
and then so how much are they bought into having him on and letting him stay in control of it, and
And do they have Ribolla Gialla and Tokai Friulano?
well, you know what, they
They-
probably
they do now.
just in an
Yeah.
experimental vineyard somewhere. I mean,
A
the-
700-acre experimental vineyard.
right.
So-
I mean, it's like you have to look at it like with Randall. Like, why did Randall go into business with Gallo? Because they have the resources, man. Like, what do you want to do if they want you to help them create the new image of
Language
wine?
of-
Like,
yes.
they're gonna do it. It's
Yeah.
crazy. All right,
Who's
back to
who's the closest one around here that has been purchased, and how did that go with the new owners letting the things stay the same, and then how long did it take before they changed? Come on.
I mean, do we really want to go down this hole, or do we want to finish up
it's
your
a
wine?
it's a dangerous topic.
I mean,
The Benzigers is probably the closest to any of this, and obviously
Okay.
they're bought by a very different group,
Right.
and they've taken the brand in a few different directions.
yeah, there was there was a Sonoma, dedicated Sonoma County brand that is now California Appellation.
and
and
the
not
imagery is
much
on
price.
airplanes, and
Yeah, they Tribute, which was like the ultimate expression of their estate property, is now there's a secondary label called The Tribute, which is just essentially probably bulk production wine. So it's bait and switch. I mean, these stories.
How long did it take? I mean, they let it roll for quite a while.
Takes a couple of years.
A couple of years.
Takes a couple of years. Yeah, they ever got to figure out.
I still hear Joey's coming back with something new every time I see him.
I mean, the Bendigers, members of the Bendiger family, are still totally involved in winemaking and branding and the whole thing. So we'll see. And that was it's not an analogous sort of situation because the Bendigers aren't the Rombauers, and Wine Group is not Gallo.
Right. That's the biggest thing.
So, you look at like Orin Swift, is maybe a better example with what Gallo has done with Orin Swift. And that brand is still just, the Prisoner is not Gallo, not part of it. So it's still just as premium. I mean, you look at that dispenser over there at the bar at the Fairmont, and it's
Papillon and Mercury Head and
so
Machete.
They can do whatever they want. It's all a matter of how much what they want to do.
Yep. Yeah. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah. All right, let's
this
get back
wine.
to this
Meanwhile,
one.
50 cases of 2015 Miller Vineyard.
Well, then don't judge a
Grenache.
book by its cover. Like looking at the color of it, you're sort of expecting one thing, and then you get it in your mouth, and it is mouth coating.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah. I mean, again, showing that Grenache has tannin and aromatically, and you're right, Brian. Visually, it looked like one thing. Aromatically, when it was first poured, it was kind of closed because it's a 2015, but it very quickly opened up and shows nice mature fruit flavors and some tertiary stuff. And I mean, again, going back to 2015. And where this vineyard's located, talk about drought and a rough year.
I'm sure it was a small berry vintage.
Yeah.
Small berries in vintages on big berry varieties make wines that are, going to take some time. I'm happy we didn't try and release this in 2017 or 2018.
Yeah.
Same with that Rossi Syrah, but to be able to, come back and offer a little bit of it, with some age on it is really showing what's up.
And for this vineyard, seeing it the one time I did, it's not a lush vineyard. Like the vines are struggling up there, and
not a lush place.
Not a lush place. Yeah. Like it's barren and it's a hard place to live, I'm sure. And add in the fact that 2015 was during the drought, it just makes it. It says it is a version of what the year is.
Totally. So. Yeah, it's fun. I'm glad to, it takes me a while to come around on the Miller Grenaches, but they're great. They're great. I love it.
Well, then
totally
you guys
stylistically.
aren't working with that vineyard anymore, right?
No, we turned it down in 2020, and I think they found somewhere else for it to go, and also. There was changes within the family, the Miller family. The Miller, Chris Miller was on the label. The grandson of Walt Disney. His parents started Silverado Winery and Silverado Country Club, I believe, right?
I know the winery.
The winery. And, that is all sold. And... so there was changes here, and I don't know exactly what's going on.
Well, the
there.
cool thing here
we're
is
not working there anymore.
You're releasing an 8, soon to be 9-year-old wine.
Right.
Beautiful.
And again, like I said, in a regular release schedule, might not have been my favorite, but
right.
With some time, it's
talk about that for a second, because it was actually kind of cool the other day when you pulled out all the wines that we were planning on sending out for club, because it was wines that were kind of usually it's new releases. But then when you try some stuff and you go, you know what? I don't think it's ready yet.
Yeah.
Then you pull it back.
The accountants don't love it. The bookkeepers don't love it.
Sure.
If I'd gone to wine business management school over there with Tim Wallace at Sonoma State, they'd say don't do that. But I love that we have the flexibility and some wines in reserve that we can do that with. I don't know if we'll always be able to do that. certainly as the club grows and
the gap of 2020,
and we're still in that gap of 2020 where we needed to fill some things in. The 2021s are totally not ready. I mean, they're just in bottle. But it was going to be the 19 Steel Plow Grenache, and it's going to be a beautiful wine. But we have the time and the patience mostly. Take some conversations with ownership to talk through this. But if we can wait 6 months and put it out, or wait a year and put it out in the spring or the fall of next year, it's going to be more ready for you to drink at home. So,
Sam, where's Sharmar?
So Sharmar is,
yeah, seriously,
Arnold Drive and Olive Street. Is it Olive Drive? Olive Street?
Just
Avenue?
Road.
Avenue? I mean,
Maybe
it's Avenue. It's Solano
Might be
Avenue. I think it's Avenue.
yeah.
Orange Avenue. Olive Avenue. This is, basically me and Bart's neighborhood. If you're familiar with Sonoma Valley, it's the vineyard just up the road from Bracco's barn, right on the road there. It's Bill Welsh and family own the property. Sharmar is an allusion, an homage to his parents, Charlie and Martha.
Maria.
Yeah. And so that's what they call the vineyard. And it's been a few things. We've replanted some bad 90s planting of Merlot. Big tall Sonoma sprawl kind of thing. We replanted it all. Now we have Cabernet, tiny little postage stamp block of Cab Franc that goes into this, and we have a Grenache, head trained Grenache vineyard there that goes into the Audoutet Rosé. So 21 Audoutet Rosé was the first time you'd have seen Sharmar on a label from us.
Does head trained produce better or more?
Not necessarily. It's for the variety, more fitting based on the way that the fruit forms and the cluster size and stuff like that. So Grenache, Zinfandel, some of the white runs.
As long as it's hanging in dappled sunlight,
hanging with integrity. Yeah.
I mean, I think this, if I could comment about this area, Sam, is, there's not a lot of Cabernet planted in this area. In that area is Lazy Dog, of course, and Stone Edge Farm has some Cabernet there. Definitely not a typical Cabernet growing area for Sonoma Valley. Cooler climate, so it could become the place for Cabernet, kind of valley floor, because it has, a little bit colder, a little bit cooler influence. Definitely gets more fog and stuff. And then the soils there, that's kind of coming down to the creek, so it's a lot of rock and everything underneath it, but on top, because of the decades and decades of flooding, have put a bunch of topsoil on the top.
Yeah.
So I imagine it probably pretty healthy vines.
It's pretty rocky. I mean, it is right. It is pretty rocky. Same with
but as you dig down, to the top surface, it kind of looks,
Yeah, I mean, it's been turned over from ripping, but it is that sort of alluvial soils of that part of the valley. That big landslide that came down from where your house. Area. It's Phil always talks about it sort of Sonoma Valley's left bank. It's got very gravelly alluvial soils. It's interesting. You talk about it being a cooler spot. It's both one of the coolest spots in the valley and one of the hottest spots in the valley.
Okay.
It's one of the places where we're worried about frost the latest into the spring. But the heat alarms at Stone Edge Farm, which is just up the road, it's always one of the first places to hit 95 on a hot day. Certainly on the valley floor.
Right.
So you get those and you get big diurnal swing. You get hot days, and then the wind shifts, and that Petaluma Gap fog starts blowing in and cools it off.
Yeah, I mean, even if it doesn't come up the valley that much to envelop the thing, it cools it down very quickly.
Totally.
Yeah.
So this is again 19 cool expression. We didn't use any new barrels on this. We used some second used, second fill barrels. Again, what it's on the label, it's 85%, 86% cab,
14, yeah.
a little bit of Cab Franc. Pretty, classical, old school kind of Cabernet expression.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, this was a great one, and it's fun to introduce something new to the club also.
And I like on the front label how you just call it Cabernet.
Yeah. Well, it's not Cabernet Sauvignon, right? If it's not 100%.
Right.
Plus, there's a lot of words. Cabernet Sauvignon takes up a lot of freaking room.
Right. Well, and the details are in the back. So.
Yeah, and the fruit's great on this. It almost has like this, like chalkiness to it too, like white chalk.
Like you used to have to clean the chalkboard a lot when you were in school.
Yeah, you can imagine. Yeah, it's with a little bit of that. I used to say, whatever, cocaine kind of had this unusual smell to it, and
I don't know what
flavor
you're talking
to
about.
it.
I don't do cocaine, but I do like to smell it. Is that what you're saying?
Take a whiff on me.
Yeah.
John, what do you think of this wine?
Oh, I'm enjoying it immensely.
Yeah.
I mean, this is my style.
Yeah.
This wine throws John back into 1979 steakhouse somewhere, right? On somebody else's, expense account.
Dime. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. That's
Show me the Cabernets.
That's the best thing you can do is travel on an expense account.
Yeah.
Somebody
else's.
New York City, $1,800 lunches at La Grenouille. Yeah, sure. That's fun.
But this is, it's. I would never put myself in this sort of rarefied air, but Heights Martha's Vineyard with that, a little bit of a kiss of eucalyptus, just that classic old school before
Cabernet.
everything got. We're anxiously awaiting our scores from Robert Parker, but before everything got
Bob.
Parkerized in the Cabernet world,
Yeah.
this is what Cabernet was and is and can still be and should be.
And what it actually tastes like.
What it
It's
actually
a
tastes
beautiful-
like.
I mean, if this was 1986 and we were opening up a 1982, Sonoma Valley Cab, it would probably taste a lot like this.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Wow.
Cool.
We've been
Wow,
through
Sam,
a lot
nice
today.
lineup.
Thank you.
Yeah, seriously.
Thanks, Brian.
Beautiful
Helping put it
lineup.
together.
Speaking of beautiful, did you see the moon last night, guys?
Yeah.
Ooh, the
Wow.
moonrise at about 8:05 through our sort of hazy upper level smoky skies that we got right now. At the second full moon of the month of August,
Stunning.
it was pretty epic.
Bright orange.
Ooh.
And I mean,
Through the-
seriously, just
Through the
Remnants of your oak
remnants
tree,
of the
oak tree.
yeah.
yeah, it was amazing.
And Sam, do you want to talk about that article at all?
Oh yeah, Sonoma Magazine.
The godfather of organic wine growing. If you are a subscriber to the Santa Rosa Press Democrat, this showed up on Sunday. Otherwise, it's on your newsstands. Big, wonderful feature on the old man. Also, a story about Robert Kamen's house, if you care. I mean, the whole magazine itself
Uncle Bobby.
is a great issue. Breakdown of tasting rooms all over the valley, all over Sonoma County. But just the photos alone, it's worth going out and finding a picture.
Who shot those?
Some of it is James Joyner,
Okay.
and some of it is Connor Hagen, another local guy.
Where is James these days?
I think he just got back into town. He's on the road with Modest Mouse, who are touring with the Pixies and Cat Power.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That'd be a great show.
Oxbow,
Right.
the 15th.
But you will have to miss the
I know.
Grenache Day
I know.
party
I
in
know.
the back of the
I know.
Golden Fig. Okay.
I know. I'm not going to miss the Grenache Day party. Okay.
But
Thank you, James, for the offer and all. But no, I mean, you know what? Does he actually ride on a bus?
he rides on the tour bus.
Do they have a couple buses? They must be.
I
they
mean,
must-
I'm not exactly sure. It sounds like it's pretty crowded. And I mean, they're also like, they're touring pretty hard. So it's like, not a lot of hotels, a whole lot of like, play the gig, get on the bus, go to sleep, wake up in the next
Right.
city kind of thing.
That's what it sounds like.
So he was old school. He was telling me he's too old for it. But also, I mean, he's younger than the guys in the Pixies, that's for sure.
Right.
Probably about the same age as Isaac and the Modest Mouse folks. So, he's out there having fun and taking photos.
No, great pics.
Follow him. You gotta love his photography.
Yeah.
Hell, I thought I was a photographer until I met him.
Until he saw James's stuff. Yeah. I mean, this photo that
it's just different.
The 2-page spread that they chose for the Sonoma magazine, which is a James's photo of me and my dad overlooking the Rossi Ranch. Actually, most importantly, Curry. Right. My dad and I.
Did Curry make it there?
Curry's in here twice. 2 James Joyner photos.
Yeah.
Curry's glossy debut.
Nothing but Curry.
And Sam, what were some of the captions that people have thrown out there?
The only one that I remember is the winning caption from our friends at Kennard Family Farms, who said, "One day all of this will be billable hours." One day.
Thank you very much for listening to the Winemaker Podcast.
We are out of here.
Buy Vinyl Sunday tickets. There's still some left. Catherine Russell on the website, on Eventbrite. It's going to be epic. It's close to selling out.
I know we're getting close. I mean, I'm getting a little bit nervous. We've never put on a
we're terrified.
concert with people that are like,
professionals. And all due respect to all the people who've been in our shows before. I never had to sign a rider.
Well, that's the part of it, right?
The all brown M&Ms.
I was going to ask that.
Is there a
the funny? There's the ones that are like in the rider. The things that make sure you
are reading it.
Reading it is like the specific airplane-sized bottles of Cavassier and Hennessy. And some other like
room
specific
temperature Pellegrino.
Yeah, room temperature and the tea and the whole thing. And these guys they tour, talking about touring hard all over the world.
And on tour with Steely Dan.
Steely Dan, jazz festivals from here to
and Steely
Germany.
Dan is one of the best jazz bands I've ever heard. Those cats, wow!
Again,
cats.
They are.
No, I know.
These are hardcore musicians who have recorded intricate stuff. I mean, look, Reelin' in the Years is a hard rock tune. However, I mean, you've got to hand it to them. Some of this other stuff is pure jazz, and it's awesome. Yeah. Just beautiful stuff.
So on Catherine Russell's profile on where they're taking our picture on Catherine Russell's profile on Spotify, they just put out 2 playlists. One is every song that Catherine has recorded under her own, for her solo work, which is awesome. From everything from 1920s jazz standards to New Speedway Boogie by the Grateful Dead. But there's like a 10-song playlist, maybe more, 15-song playlist of things that she recorded as the backup singer, and it's like Steely Dan, Donald Fagen, David Bowie, Cyndi Lauper, Madonna. And if you know Catherine's voice, so maybe go listen to a few of the solo albums, a few songs on the solo playlist, and then go and listen to it was a Madonna song where I'm like, holy shit, this is Madonna hit from the 80s, and when it gets to the chorus, what I hear is Catherine's voice.
Wow. Yeah.
Just like coming through clear as day.
And I really have to recommend a great show that's on Netflix right now. It's called The Playlist, and it is about the guys who put together Spotify.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's not what you think. I mean, it's real. And it is based on, of course, a true story. It is as close as they can get to a true story, but it makes the people at Spotify, I'll just let you watch the show and make your own conclusions.
Well,
it's
there's
really
a lot of musicians who
done.
have their issues with Spotify, and they're on Spotify.
Call in to Pirate Radio Saturdays at KSVY and let John know what you think of the playlist.
And copy Mountain Cabernet at gmail.com.
And follow Snoop Dogg, because I love what he says on some of this digital streaming stuff. He has some really good comments if you want to follow him on
Did you
Instagram.
see the U.S. Open? Smelled like Snoop Dogg's living room.
I heard about this.
That was just a
everybody at the U.S. Open
in
in New York You go to New York now. I mean, it was always like kind of you could find people smoking weed everywhere. The whole city
Smells
is
like
smoking weed.
Yeah.
The last time I was in New York, you get out of Penn Station, and I walk up, and there's like a woman in the full like pencil skirt business suit, kind of like power suit, just sitting on the corner smoking a joint. I'm like, what universe did I mean, it's the universe I've always wanted to be in, but what universe am I in right
Still
now?
shocks you a little bit.
Yeah, totally.
And then California declassifying marijuana is on the table, so taking it out of whatever
any drug
classification
category,
that it's in.
And the next thing is psychedelics. You know,
I think Colorado will probably lead the way, and then we'll get on board.
That's why we love Colorado.
Yeah. But if you want to come to the concert, I mean, we're going to be sold out, so
get on it.
Yeah, get on. Just go to winery16600.com.
Go to buy wine, and it's
it's $75. It's going to be the best concert that Sonoma's ever seen.
So can I sneak in for cash?
I think you're on the list, John.
Okay.
Bring a chair.
Bring a chair
or a blanket.
It's it's in a lawn.
A bunkie.
Yeah.
But if you are a Phil Sent Me member
myself.
and you buy that $75 ticket, all your wine and food are complimentary. If you're not a Phil Sent Me member,
hey
you
Roger,
have to buy some food, buy some wine.
Come on out, baby.
So,
come
it
on
makes
out.
sense.
The best local chefs and
Bix, come on down. I haven't heard from Ben Bixby.
Bix is trying. I know Brett George will be there. Now we have
George Brett.
George Brett.
How about
3,000 hits?
Robert French.
Brett, don't call me George Brett.
Don't call me George Brett. And so it's gonna be and there's all kinds of people that I names popping up on
I'd like to see
sales
Dave Hayes.
that I have no idea who they are. So totally new to us. We're new to them. It's gonna be fun. So.
Oh, it's going to be a blast. And I'm going to go there. Then I run over to Napa
to go see Dave Mason.
Catch Dave Mason at the Uptown Theater.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be a
big night in
but see,
wine country.
The key is Joan leaves for Brussels and Paris that day. So I'm loose.
Solo John.
I'm loose.
Who's driving?
I was going to say,
around?
let's get you an Uber.
Yeah.
Uber for John.
Yeah.
Who's next for the 3 weeks, man? That's it.
All right.
All right. Other shout outs. Next week, the Dane Cellars release party.
Oh, we've got a bunch in the can too.
And we have a bunch of shows that will be coming up that we're kind of preempting here.
Yeah, we keep
so
bumping.
Sam and I and Brian can all keep getting paid.
Sell some wine.
Right on, brother.
The Sonoma Valley.
You were getting paid?
That's what I keep telling myself.
That's what you keep telling Terry.
I keep.
Shout out Terry Hansen. Does she go by Terry
Sonoma
Hansen?
Valley Vintage Festival is September 29th and 30th. Tickets are available. I know we keep saying this, but it's coming around really, really nicely.
It's a great party.
It's going to be a great event. The 199th. I'm sorry. This year is the 199th vintage in Sonoma Valley. So just last week, on Wednesday of Wednesday of last week, Gloria Ferrar. No, Wednesday of this week, 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Gloria Ferrar kicked off their vintage. So the first grapes harvested in Sonoma Valley. We had the bell ringing ceremony in front of the plaza. Grapes were blessed.
Unless you were at sexual harassment
training. Bells were rang. But at least you know what not to do.
Did you learn what to do?
Turns out not. Will you explain though the 199?
Yeah, who came up with that?
Because
number?
we were talking about that this morning. Because we think of Buena Vista as like 1857.
So
54.
I think and actually I asked for this and I haven't fully got the answer, but I think it has to go with the fact that that they were making wine when the mission was here. And the church. So this is also the 199th year for St. Francis Solano Church. And so if the church was here, trust me, there were people here making wine. Right. And so that's where it goes along with it. It's really interesting that anybody listening, go to the Gunlock Bun Shoe Instagram feed, and they have a great post about the Vintage Festival, because essentially it started at Gunlock Bun Shoe. They were the first ones and hosted it for the longest time. So there's some great history there. I'll try to get a little more information about that and share it.
Cool. Next week on the Dane Sellers release party.
Yeah, maybe I can get Jeff Bunchy to come in for a cameo and tell the story about that a little bit.
And do we want to tease heading to Georgia, or are we still
got Georgia on the mind?
Georgia. Ray Charles.
We got most likely. I think we'll
most likely you got Ray Charles.
Yeah, Ray Charles is going to be there at the party. We're going to do some consumer facing stuff at Atlanta the second week of October, because I still won't be fucking picking grapes. So
wait a minute.
Yeah,
you're going to Atlanta to sell wine during
to
harvest?
Ray Charles,
10th through the 12th of October, because maybe we'll have picked.
You are in the marketing department.
Yeah. Thanks.
and we've got our 300th show coming up.
Imminent. We better freaking plan it.
We've got to plan this because I want a party. I want people coming over
again during the middle of harvest.
Yeah.
Of course. It's almost like we did it on purpose.
Well, let's get Steve Law. Let's get
yeah.
I mean, everybody that we can get just to drop by. Hey,
I think we'll be lucky if we get Kevin Burns.
I'm popping for the food, and you guys pop for the wine.
Maybe we get Bart's truck. We put the podcast equipment in the back, and we just go from vineyard to vineyard and
just go visit people,
interview people as they're picking grapes. You got a little electric hookup.
I have one of those super batteries. You can literally do that.
Yeah.
Just go around.
Can you run your house off?
Just drive into people's crush pads and go. Yeah.
Hey, we're here.
All right, everybody.
Thanks so much for listening. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Episode 293, if you're counting.
That's it.